New Zealand maintains strong military relations with Australia. ANZUS may have collapsed in the 1980s, but New Zealand still has a mutual defence agreement with Australia. Australia is New Zealand's only formal defence ally. Alliances are dangerous. Australia increasingly plays the role of a stooge for the United States. The recent AUKUS agreement has essentially made Australia a US lackey, an attack dog to be used to contain China. This is dangerous stuff. If Australia recklessly gets involved in a war, our defence agreements could drag us into that war. Alliances are dangerous. They can make us a target. They can drag us into a war. If they get involved in a war with China, they will drag us into that war. That is the nature of our defence relations. Is it time to stand alone? Should we end our security ties with Australia? Is it time for ANZUS to collapse entirely? There was much fear-mongering about the initial collapse of ANZUS, but New Zealand remained safe and secure. So is it time to say goodbye to the agreement completely? Is it time to cut our strong defence ties with Australia? Many people certainly find this idea to be ridiculous. But we should never take our alliances for granted. The stakes are far too high for our foreign policy making to be driven by tradition and emotion. Reason must sit in the pilot's seat. Maintaining security ties would be a non-brainer if Australia distanced themselves from the United States, adopted a more independent foreign policy, and stopped being a mindless US lackey. This is what they should do, but that seems improbable. They seem to be a devoted United States lackey. This is unwise. The Australian people deserve better. But their government is intent on acting as a mindless attack dog for Washington. I like Australia and want to maintain security ties, but not if they are going to be a mindless US stooge. Australia deserves better, and so does New Zealand. Weakening our security ties with Australia would have a number of major downsides. It could deprive us of the many benefits of close security relations. Military training, military technology, sharing intelligence. These things are valuable, and we risk losing access to them if we alienate Australia and destroy our alliances. Breaking the alliance could endanger these things. It could make us more distant. This could weaken mutually beneficial trade and diplomatic relations. It could lead to more competitive relations, which could be an issue for us due to our far smaller size. Of course, ending our security alliance with Australia could make us more vulnerable to enemy attack. But we could easily beef up our defences. Light combat aircraft, anti-ship missile trucks, surface-to-air missile batteries, mass weapons for distribution among the population, cheap military drones, fast attack craft. A small state just needs to be too much of a hassle to attack to be worth it. In the modern world, asymmetrical warfare is a very powerful thing. We could increase our military spending and make ourselves too much of a hassle for anyone to ever want to attack. Our sheer isolation and a lack of strategic value already does most of the heavy lifting for us in this regard. A few good military assets on top of that would make an attack extremely unlikely. And even without formal defence obligations, if China attacked us, Australia and the United States would probably defend us. The last thing they want is for China to have bases so close. But there is another variable too. Maintaining close relations with the United States and Australia may be in our security interests for another reason too. These countries are in the best position to attack us. If a conflict breaks out, and we are perceived as a threat or an inconvenience, that could become an issue. And our relations with Australia may slowly drift apart to the point that we could become geostrategically competitive. Of course, our small size does not put us in a good position in such a competition. That is a serious risk of ending military ties. The offence such a thing would likely cause to Australia may send us on this trajectory from the outset. We may end up becoming very competitive, and we would not do well if we were in competition with a much larger, more powerful country. Many of these considerations may seem far removed from our modern world, but international relations is dynamic and ever-changing. Things can change a lot very quickly. I know I often reiterate this point, but it is extremely important. It is one of the key components of international relations. In my view, we should preserve our security alliance with Australia, but we should never take it for granted. We should question it and consider it. We should reassess it in light of new developments. We should not be totally reliant on it. We should not be dogmatically loyal to it. We should preserve our ties with Australia, but no security relationship should be taken for granted or preserved for the sake of it. These issues are far too important for traditions and national histories to get in the way of rational, pragmatic decision-making. We should question and consider every aspect of our foreign policy. The stakes are too high to take anything for granted. The international realm is a brutal and unforgiving place. Every step must be taken with exceptional caution.